The metallic tang of blood hit me before I even opened the door. My hand froze on the brass knob of Dante's penthouse, the place I'd sworn I'd never return to, the place that held too many memories of sleepless nights and whispered promises that turned to ash. But his message had been desperate, clipped, unlike the smooth-talking man who'd once convinced me the world could be ours. Need you. Now. Please. 3 words that shouldn't have worked. 3 words that pulled me across the city at midnight, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird that remembered its prison too well. The door swung open before I could knock. Silence greeted me. Heavy, suffocating silence that tasted of gunpowder and something darker. The penthouse that had always gleamed with cold perfection now looked like a crime scene painted in shadows. Moonlight sliced through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the wreckage. Overturned furniture, shattered glass scattered across marble floors like deadly stars, and a trail of something dark leading toward the nursery. Dante? My voice cracked, barely a whisper. No answer. My sneakers crunched over broken crystal as I moved deeper into the apartment, every instinct screaming at me to run. But then I heard it. A sound that froze the blood in my veins. Crying. Not one voice, but 2, the twins. I ran. The nursery door stood ajar, and what I saw behind it would be seared into my memory forever. Dante sat slumped against the wall beneath the window, his usually pristine white shirt soaked crimson across his left shoulder and ribs. His face, that beautiful, cruel face that had haunted my dreams for 6 months, was pale as death, sheened with sweat that caught the dim glow of the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. But his arms cradled Marco and Lucia with a gentleness that made my chest constrict. The 4-month-old twins were red-faced and wailing, their tiny fists beating against his blood-stained chest, and he was singing. Barely audible, his voice rough as gravel, but singing nonetheless. An Italian lullaby his mother had sung to him. Oh my God. The words ripped from my throat. His eyes, those steel-gray eyes that had once looked at me like I was the only woman in the world, snapped to mine. For a moment, I saw relief flash across his features before his jaw tightened, that familiar mask of control sliding back into place even as he bled out on the nursery floor. You came. It wasn't a question. He'd known I would. Bastard. You're shot. I dropped to my knees beside him, my hands hovering uselessly over the wounds. There was so much blood. Too much. It pooled beneath him, seeping into the plush cream carpet, and I could see his shirt was shredded, like something, or someone, had torn through it. We need to call 911. We need... No hospitals. His hand shot out, catching my wrist with surprising strength. His fingers were slick with blood, and I could feel his pulse racing against my skin. No police. You need to take them, Elena. Take the twins and go. Are you insane? You're dying. I've handled worse. A lie. I could see it in the tightness around his eyes, the way his breathing had gone shallow and rapid. There's a bag in my closet, black duffel. Cash, passports, everything you need. Take them to the address inside. Tell Sophia. I'm not leaving you here to bleed out. My voice rose and Lucia's crying intensified. Instinctively, I reached for her, lifting her from Dante's weakening grip. She was warm and solid against my chest, her tears soaking into my sweater, and the familiar weight of her made something inside me crack open. These babies. I'd held them hours after they were born, had watched Dante cradle them with wonder in his eyes, had felt my heart shatter when he'd pushed me away 3 months later, without explanation. Marco wailed louder, his face scrunched and purple with distress. Give him to me, I said, reaching for the boy with my free arm. Dante tried to hold on, but his strength was failing. I saw the moment he had to let go, saw the agony that crossed his face, and it wasn't from the bullet wounds. With both twins against me, I stood on shaking legs. Where's your phone? I'm calling for help. Elena. My name on his lips was a command and a plea. You don't understand what you're walking into. Those men, they'll come back. When they do. What men? What the hell happened here? His laugh was bitter, wet. You really don't know, do you? After everything, you still... He coughed, and blood flecked his lips. The sight made my stomach turn. Get the bag. Get them out. I'll handle this. You'll die, that's what you'll do. Tears burned my eyes, blurring his form into a watercolor of crimson and shadow. Just tell me what's happening. Please. You owe me that much. For a long moment, he just looked at me, really looked at me, the way he used to when we'd lie tangled in his sheets at dawn, when he'd trace my face like he was memorizing something precious. Then his hand moved, slowly, painfully, reaching into his jacket. I tensed, expecting a weapon, but what he pulled out was worse, a badge. Not a police badge. I knew those. This was different. Black leather, embossed with a symbol I didn't recognize, a crowned serpent coiled around a dagger. I'm not who you think I am, he said quietly. I never was. The twins' crying had reduced to hiccuping whimpers against my shoulders, but I barely noticed. My brain was trying to process his words, the badge, the military precision of the bullet wounds, the way he'd said no police, like it was the most natural thing in the world. What does that mean? It means the man you fell in love with doesn't exist, Kara. It means those babies you're holding have a target on their backs the size of Manhattan. It means... He stopped, his eyes focusing on something behind me. Every muscle in his body went rigid. Get down. I didn't think. I just moved, dropping into a crouch behind the overturned rocking chair, tucking the twins against me as tightly as I dared. My heart was a war drum in my ears, drowning out everything except the twins' frightened breathing and the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Multiple sets. Dante was moving too, impossibly, dragging himself upright with one hand braced against the wall. I watched in horrified fascination as he pulled a gun from an ankle holster I'd never known existed. How had I never known? And checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. His face had gone blank, emotionless, transformed into something cold and lethal that I didn't recognize. This wasn't the man who'd cooked me breakfast in silk pajama pants. This wasn't the man who'd cried when the twins were born. This was someone else entirely. When I say, run, he murmured, his voice barely audible. You take them and you go out the service entrance. There's a car waiting 2 blocks south. Black Mercedes, license plate 7 King 4 9 Romeo. Driver's name is Santos. He'll get you out of the city. Dante. Promise me, Elena. He looked at me then, and I saw something raw and desperate in his eyes. Promise me you'll keep them safe. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you don't look back. You run, and you don't stop running until Santos says it's safe. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear voices now, speaking in rapid Italian, and the sound of metal scraping against metal. They were checking rooms. Hunting. I don't understand any of this, I whispered, and I hated how my voice shook. I don't know who you are. I'm the man who loves you. Simple. Devastating. I'm the man who's loved you since the moment you spilled coffee on my Armani suit in that cafe and told me to watch where I was going. I'm the man who would burn the whole world down to keep you safe. His smile was sad, knowing. And I'm the man who's about to save your life. So when I say run, the nursery door exploded inward. I didn't scream, couldn't scream. My voice locked somewhere in my chest as 3 men poured into the room, all black tactical gear and raised weapons. They moved like predators, like death incarnate, and their guns swung toward Dante with lethal precision. Run! His shout broke the spell. I was moving before my brain caught up, clutching the twins so hard they squeaked in protest, my feet flying across the carpet toward the connecting bathroom. Behind me, gunfire erupted, sharp cracks that made my ears ring and my heart stop. I heard Dante's roar, heard the wet thud of bodies hitting the floor, heard cursing in Italian and English, and something else I couldn't identify. I didn't look back. The bathroom had a second door leading to the master bedroom. I'd discovered it months ago during a playful chase that had ended with Dante pinning me against the marble counter, his mouth hot on my neck. The memory felt like it belonged to someone else, some naive girl who'd believed in fairy tales and men with kind eyes. I burst through into the bedroom, my lungs burning, the twins crying again in earnest. The service entrance. Where was the service entrance? I'd never used it, had barely known it existed. The kitchen. It had to be through the kitchen. More gunfire behind me. A scream. Not Dante's, thank God, not Dante's. The kitchen gleamed in the moonlight, all stainless steel and black granite. I ran for the far wall, the one with the industrial refrigerator, and yes, there, nearly invisible, a panel that looked like part of the wall. My fingers scrabbled at it, searching for the release, and the twins' weight made everything harder, made my arms shake and my movements clumsy. Come on, come on, come on, the panel clicked, swung open. A narrow hallway stretched beyond, dimly lit by emergency lighting, smelling of concrete and old metal. I plunged into it without hesitation, letting the panel swing shut behind me, muffling the sounds of violence in the penthouse. My sneakers slapped against concrete as I ran down stairs that seemed to go on forever. 20 flights? 30? I lost count. The twins had gone eerily quiet against me, their warm weight the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. But the blood drying on my hands was real. The gunshots still ringing in my ears were real. The way Dante had looked at me, like he was memorizing my face for the last time, that was real too. The stairs ended in an underground garage that smelled of exhaust and old oil. I paused, gasping for air, trying to remember his instructions. 2 blocks south. Black Mercedes. 7 King 4 9 Romeo. Santos. A side door led to an alley. I pushed through it, and the November cold hit me like a slap. I hadn't grabbed a coat. The twins had only their onesies. We were going to freeze. Going to focus. Focus or die. I ran south, my internal compass screaming directions. The streets were nearly empty at this hour, just a few scattered pedestrians who didn't look twice at a woman sprinting through the darkness with 2 babies. New York at 1 a.m. You could be running from murder or running to catch a train, and no one cared either way. 2 blocks felt like 2 miles. My arms were screaming, my lungs burning, my mind replaying those final moments on loop. The blood, the gunfire, the way Dante had looked at that badge like it was a death sentence. I'm not who you think I am. There. The Mercedes sat at the curb, engine running, exhaust puffing white in the cold air. Tinted windows hid the interior, but as I approached, the back door swung open. Get in. Now. The voice was rough, accented, brooking no argument. I hesitated for half a second, just long enough for survival instinct to war with the insanity of climbing into a stranger's car with 2 infants. But then I heard it. Sirens in the distance, growing louder. Police? Ambulance? More men with guns? I dove into the car. The door slammed shut before I'd even settled into the leather seats. The driver, Santos presumably, hit the gas, and we peeled away from the curb with barely controlled violence. I twisted in my seat, looking back at the building we'd fled from, at the penthouse windows 40 stories up. No flames, no lights, just darkness, and the weight of not knowing if Dante was alive or dead. Buckle them in. Santos's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Back seat has car seats, built in. Of course it did. Of course Dante had planned for this, had prepared for the moment when his worlds collided, and I'd be running for my life with his children. How long had he been planning? How much had he hidden? My hands shook as I secured Marco and Lucia into the car seats. Expensive ones, perfectly sized, like everything in Dante's life. The twins stared up at me with his eyes, gray and solemn, and I felt something crack in my chest. Is he alive? I asked Santos, meeting his eyes in the rearview mirror. He was older, maybe 50, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow and the kind of face that had seen too much. The boss? He survived worse, miss. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. He merged onto the highway, heading north out of the city. You did good getting them out. He'll be grateful. I don't want his gratitude. I want answers. My voice rose, edged with hysteria. I want to know who those men were. I want to know why someone tried to kill him in his own home. I want to know what that badge meant. Why he said the twins have targets on their backs. Why? Miss Elena. Santos's voice was gentle but firm. I understand you're scared, but those aren't my answers to give. When it's safe, the boss will explain everything. Until then, my job is to keep you and those babies alive. So I need you to trust me, just for tonight. Can you do that?" Could I? Trust a stranger in a car racing toward an unknown destination while the man I'd loved, still loved, God help me, bled out in a bullet-riddled penthouse? I looked down at Marco and Lucia. They'd finally settled, their breathing evening out, tiny fists curled against their chests. Innocent, helpless, depending on me to make the right choice. "Where are we going?" I asked quietly. "Safe house. 2 hours outside the city. It's secure, off the grid. You'll have everything you need." He paused. The boss made sure of that. Of course he did. Even bleeding out, even facing armed men, Dante had thought ahead, had planned for my safety, for his children's safety. The realization should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me, because men who planned this carefully, who had networks of safe houses and drivers waiting in the night, those weren't ordinary men. Those were men with enemies, men with secrets, men who lived in shadows and violence. "I'm not who you think I am, Santos," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "What is Dante? What does he really do?" The silence stretched long enough that I thought he wouldn't answer. Then softly, "He's the devil, miss, but he's our devil, and God help anyone who threatens what's his." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to unpack. Outside the window, the city lights faded into darkness, swallowing us whole. I pressed my hand against the cold glass and watched Manhattan disappear behind us, carrying with it every certainty I'd ever had. Somewhere in that jungle of steel and stone, Dante was fighting for his life, if he was even still alive, and I was running into the night with his children, his secrets, and a terrible suspicion growing in my gut that nothing would ever be the same again. The twins slept on, oblivious to the storm gathering around them. I envied them that ignorance. The safe house wasn't what I expected. Somehow, in my panic-soaked imagination, I'd pictured something out of a crime drama. Dingy warehouse, flickering lights, the smell of mildew and desperation. Instead, Santos pulled through wrought iron gates into a property that could have graced the cover of Architectural Digest. A sprawling colonial mansion sat nestled among towering oaks, its white facade glowing pale blue in the pre-dawn light. Manicured lawns stretched in every direction, and through the trees, I caught the glint of water, a lake, maybe, or a river. "Welcome to Willow Creek," Santos said, killing the engine. "You'll be safe here." Safe. The word felt foreign on my tongue, like a language I'd forgotten how to speak. A woman emerged from the front door before I could unbuckle the twins. Tall, elegant, maybe 60, with silver hair twisted into an elaborate bun. She wore slacks and a cashmere sweater despite the hour, moved with the kind of grace that spoke of ballet training or finishing schools. Her eyes swept over the car, taking in every detail with clinical precision before settling on me through the window. "That's Sophia," Santos said. "The boss is, well, she runs things when he can't, the boss. Not Dante. Not the man I'd known, or thought I'd known. Already he was becoming something else in my mind. A title, a position, a stranger wearing a familiar face. Sophia opened my door before I could gather the courage. Her perfume hit me first, jasmine and something darker, wood smoke maybe, expensive and understated. Up close, I could see the hardness in her eyes, the set of her jaw that suggested she'd seen horrors I couldn't imagine and survived them all. Elena. Not a question. She knew who I was. "Let me take one of the babies. You look ready to collapse." I should have argued. Should have held tight to Marco and Lucia like they were the only solid things in a tilting world. But my arms had gone numb somewhere around mile marker 40, and when Sophia reached for Lucia with practiced hands, I let her go. The baby settled against Sophia's shoulder without protest, and something about that casual acceptance made my throat tighten. How many babies had this woman held? How many frightened mothers had she ushered through these doors in the dead of night? "Come inside," Sophia said, already moving toward the house. "We'll get them fed and settled, then we'll talk." The interior matched the exterior, all crown molding and hardwood floors, crystal chandeliers catching the soft glow of table lamps. But underneath the elegance, I noticed other details. Security cameras in every corner, reinforced doors, windows with shutters that looked bulletproof. This wasn't just a house. It was a fortress dressed in silk and sophistication. Sophia led me upstairs to a nursery that made my chest constrict. 2 cribs stood against the far wall, already made up with fresh linens. A changing table stocked with diapers, wipes, powder. A rocking chair by the window, shelves lined with bottles, formula, everything we'd need. He'd prepared this. Dante had prepared all of this, had this room ready and waiting for a disaster he'd seen coming. "How long?" I asked, my voice cracking. "How long has this room been ready?" Sophia's expression softened fractionally. "Since the day the twins were born." Mr. Rossi believes in contingency plans. Mr. Rossi. Another title. Another layer of distance between the man I'd loved and whoever he really was. The twins woke hungry and furious about it. For the next hour, I fell into the familiar rhythm of bottles and burping, diaper changes and soft humming. Sophia moved around me with quiet efficiency, heating formula to the perfect temperature, producing clean clothes that fit the babies perfectly, never asking questions or demanding explanations, just helping. By the time both twins were clean, fed, and drowsing in their cribs, exhaustion had turned my bones to lead. I stood watching them sleep, my hand pressed against the crib rail, trying to reconcile the peaceful scene with the violence we'd fled. "Come," Sophia said from the doorway. "They'll sleep for a few hours. You need food, a shower, and answers, in that order." I followed her downstairs to a kitchen that belonged in a cooking show. All marble counters and professional appliances. She pointed me to a chair at the breakfast bar, then set about making coffee with movements that spoke of ritual, of comfort found in routine. The smell alone nearly made me weep. "Drink," she said, sliding a mug across the granite. "Then eat." A plate appeared next. Eggs, toast, bacon, like she'd conjured it from thin air. "Then we'll discuss what happens next." I wrapped my hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into my frozen fingers. "Is he alive?" "Yes." The relief hit so hard I had to close my eyes against it. "How do you know?" "Because if Dante Rossi was dead, the entire eastern seaboard would be in flames right now." Sophia settled across from me, her own coffee untouched. "He was moved to a secure medical facility an hour ago. Stable. 2 bullets removed, one still lodged near his spine, but not life-threatening. He'll live." "Who shot him?" "That's complicated. Everything about tonight has been complicated." My voice rose, and I forced it back down. The twins were sleeping. Couldn't wake the twins. "I deserve answers, Sophia. I deserve to know why I just spent 2 hours running through the night with 2 babies while the man I stopped. While Dante bled out on a nursery floor." Sophia studied me over the rim of her cup, those sharp eyes cataloging every micro-expression. Finally, she nodded. "You're right. And Dante would want you to know, especially now. Especially since..." She paused. "Since you're tied to this family whether you want to be or not. What does that mean?" "It means the moment you walked into that penthouse tonight, you became a target. It means the people who came for Dante know about you, know you have his children, and will use that knowledge however they can." She leaned forward. "Elena, I need you to understand something. Dante Rossi isn't just some wealthy businessman with shady connections. He's the head of the Rossi crime family, has been since his father died 3 years ago." The words landed like physical blows. Crime family. Mafia. The badge. The guns. The way Santos had called him the boss, like it was a royal title. "No." I shook my head. "No, he worked in real estate. Property development. He showed me contracts, took business calls. He does work in real estate. It's an excellent front for money laundering." Sophia's voice was gentle but relentless. "The Rossi family controls most of the construction and development in New York, half the docks, significant portions of the entertainment industry. They've been building their empire for 4 generations. Dante inherited all of it when his father was killed. Killed, not died. Killed. I would have known," I whispered. "I would have seen something, some sign. He's very good at compartmentalizing. Most people who work for him have no idea who he really is. He keeps his world separate, keeps the people he cares about away from the violence. Her expression hardened. Until 6 months ago, when Alessandro Marino's men tracked you to your apartment. The room tilted. I gripped the counter to steady myself. What? The men who've been watching your building, the black sedan that followed you to work twice last week. You noticed them, didn't you? Felt eyes on you? I had. God, I had noticed. But I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid, that the breakup with Dante had made me jumpy and suspicious. Who is Alessandro Marino, Dante's rival, head of the Marino family, and the man who wants the Rossi Empire for himself? Sophia's jaw tightened. He's been trying to find leverage against Dante for years, and then you happened. I don't understand. You made Dante vulnerable. You and those babies upstairs. You're his weakness. Alessandro has been waiting for an opening like this. She paused. That's why Dante pushed you away, not because he stopped loving you, but because loving you put you in danger. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The sudden coldness after the twins were born. The way Dante had stopped taking my calls, had his assistant turn me away at his office. The careful, clinical child support payments that arrived like clockwork without a single personal word. I'd thought he'd grown tired of me. That fatherhood had scared him away, that I'd been nothing but a temporary distraction. But he'd been protecting me, hiding me, trying to erase any connection that Alessandro could exploit. Tonight, I said slowly, those men, Alessandro's soldiers, they breached the penthouse while Dante was putting the twins down for the night. Caught him without his usual security detail. Sophia's expression turned grim. They were supposed to kill him and take the babies. Use them as leverage to force what's left of the Rossi family to surrender territory. Ice flooded my veins. They wanted to kidnap Marco and Lucia? Yes. And if you hadn't arrived when you did, she didn't finish. Didn't need to. I thought of Dante, bleeding and dying, still holding his children, still singing to them. He'd been buying time, I realized. Waiting for Santos, or Sophia, or someone to arrive. But I'd come instead, his ex-girlfriend who knew nothing about his real life, stumbling into a war zone because he'd sent a desperate text. Why did he call me? The question hurt to ask. If he'd been trying to protect me, why bring me into this? Sophia's expression softened. Because in that moment, with bullets flying and his security scattered, you were the only person he trusted completely. The only one who couldn't have been compromised, bought, or turned. He knew you'd die before you let anything happen to those babies. She was right. God help me, she was right. I barely knew those children, had seen them only 3 times since birth. Brief visits Dante had allowed under Sophia's supervision. But the moment I'd heard them crying, every protective instinct I possessed had roared to life. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait. Dante recovers. Alessandro makes his next move. And you? Sophia's eyes bored into mine. You decide if you're running or fighting. I'm not a fighter. I'm a graphic designer who lives in a studio apartment and whose biggest crisis before tonight was a client who didn't like their logo redesign. You ran through a building under siege carrying 2 infants. You didn't hesitate, didn't freeze. You protected what mattered. Sophia stood, collecting our cups. That's fighting, Elena. That's exactly what fighting looks like. The sun was rising outside the windows, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that seemed obscene after the night's darkness. Somewhere in this new, terrifying world, Dante was lying in a hospital bed with bullets dug out of his flesh. Alessandro Marino was plotting his next attack, and I was sitting in a mansion that looked like paradise, but functioned as a prison, responsible for 2 babies who'd inherited their father's enemies, along with his gray eyes. I need to see him, I said. Dante, when can I see him? When it's safe. When we're sure Alessandro's men aren't watching the facility, waiting for exactly that. Sophia paused at the doorway. He asked about you, before they sedated him for surgery. First thing he said when he woke up was, "Did she make it? Are they safe?" The words shouldn't have affected me. After months of silence, of being shut out and pushed away, I should have been immune to Dante's concern, but my throat closed anyway, tears burning behind my eyes. "Get some rest," Sophia said quietly. Guest room is at the end of the hall. I'll listen for the twins. When you wake up, we'll start teaching you how to survive in this world." She left me alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the trappings of normalcy, coffee mugs and breakfast plates, while my entire reality splintered apart. I thought about the Dante I'd known, the man who'd laughed at my terrible cooking and made love to me like I was precious. The man who'd cried when the ultrasound showed twins, who'd held my hand through labor even though we'd barely known each other 6 months. That man had been real. I had to believe that, but he'd also been a lie, or not a lie exactly, just incomplete. A carefully curated version designed to protect me from the truth. "I'm the man who would burn the whole world down to keep you safe." His words echoed in my memory, and for the first time, I understood what he'd meant. This wasn't romance novel hyperbole. This was literal truth. Dante Rossi, mafia boss, crime lord, whatever he was, would absolutely set the world on fire if it meant protecting his children. And somehow, impossibly, I was still included in that protection, still counted among the things he'd kill to defend. I climbed the stairs on legs that barely held me, found the guest room Sophia had indicated. It was beautiful, of course. Plush bed, expensive linens, attached bathroom with heated floors, every comfort, every luxury. A gilded cage. I collapsed onto the bed without undressing, still wearing clothes stained with Dante's blood, and stared at the ceiling as dawn light crept across the walls. Sleep felt impossible. My mind kept replaying the night's events, kept circling back to one terrible question. What would I have done differently if I'd known the truth from the beginning? The answer came immediately. Unwanted. Nothing. I would have fallen for him anyway. Would have loved him anyway. Would have had his children anyway. Because the man beneath the titles and the violence, the man who sang Italian lullabies and kissed my forehead at midnight, that man was worth loving. Even if loving him meant becoming a target. Even if loving him meant learning to live in shadows and fear. Even if loving him meant eventually having to choose between the simple life I'd known and the dangerous one he'd tried to keep me from. My eyes drifted closed despite my best efforts. Exhaustion dragged me under, and my last conscious thought was of Dante's face as I'd run from the nursery, the way he'd looked at me like he was memorizing something he'd never see again. I'd proven him wrong. I was still here, still alive, still standing. But for how long? I woke to the sound of crying, and my own scream lodged in my throat. For a disorienting moment, I didn't know where I was. The room was wrong. Too large, too bright, sunlight streaming through windows that faced the wrong direction. Then memory crashed back like a tidal wave. The blood. The gunfire. Dante's gray eyes watching me run, the crying intensified. Marco, I thought, recognizing the particular pitch of his distress. I rolled out of bed, my body protesting every movement. Muscles I didn't know I had screaming in complaint. The clock on the nightstand read 2:47 p.m. I'd slept for almost 8 hours. I found Sophia in the nursery, rocking a red-faced Marco while Lucia dozed peacefully in her crib. The older woman looked as immaculate as she had at dawn, not a hair out of place, though exhaustion lined her eyes. "I'm sorry," I said, reaching for Marco. "I should have heard him, You needed rest." Sophia handed over the baby without argument. "You're no good to them if you collapse from exhaustion. Besides, I raised 3 children of my own. I remember the routine." Marco settled against my shoulder, his crying tapering to hiccups. I swayed instinctively, that ancient rhythm that seemed hardwired into every woman who'd ever held a distressed infant. "Any news?" Sophia's expression shuddered. "Dante's awake, demanding to leave the facility against medical advice. He wants to see the twins." She paused. "And you." My heart stuttered. "When?" "Tonight, if the perimeter stays secure. Santos is running surveillance now, making sure Alessandro's men haven't picked up the trail." She moved to the window, gazing out at the grounds with the vigilance of a soldier scanning for threats. "But there's something you should know before you see him." The way she said it made my stomach drop. "What?" "The man who led the attack last night. Luca Marino, Alessandro's nephew, he survived. Dante didn't kill him." Sophia's jaw tightened. "Which means Alessandro knows for certain that Dante's alive and weak." He'll move fast now, try to capitalize before the Rossi family can consolidate. What does that mean for us? For the twins? It means this safe house just became the most important piece of real estate in New York. It means every man loyal to the Rossi family will be circling these walls. She turned to face me. And it means you need to decide, Elena. Right now. Are you staying or do you want out? Out. I stared at her. How would that even work? You just said I'm a target. New identity, new city. We'd set you up somewhere far from here. Seattle, maybe, or Portland. Give you a fresh start, a different name. Enough money to disappear. Sophia's voice was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing vacation plans. The twins would stay here. They're Rossis. They belong with the family. The words hit like a punch to the gut. You want me to abandon them? I want to give you a choice, the same choice Dante tried to give you 6 months ago when he pushed you away. Her eyes held no judgment, only a terrible understanding. This life, it's not for everyone. There's no shame in walking away while you still can. I looked down at Marco, his tiny fist curled against my collarbone, his breathing finally even and peaceful. Lucia stirred in her crib, making the soft mewling sounds that meant she'd wake soon wanting food. These babies, Dante's children. Part of him, but also part of me. Not by blood, but by every minute I'd spent loving him, every moment I'd imagined the future we'd never have. If I leave, I said slowly, what happens to them? They'll be raised by the family, loved, protected, given every advantage. Sophia's expression softened, but they'll grow up in this world, Elena. They'll learn to shoot before they learn algebra. They'll understand violence and loyalty and blood debts before they understand innocence. This is what it means to be a Rossi. The image she painted was horrifying and mesmerizing in equal measure. I thought of Marco and Lucia as teenagers, cold-eyed and dangerous, carrying their father's legacy like a loaded weapon. The idea made me physically ill. And if I stay? Then you fight for a different future. You fight to give them something softer, something better than what Dante had. She moved closer, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. But understand, if you stay, you're all in. No halfway measures. You'll have to learn this world, learn how to navigate it, how to survive it. And you'll have to do it while Alessandro Marino is actively trying to destroy everything Dante's built. Why would he even want me to stay? Dante, I mean. I'm a liability. I don't know anything about... I gestured vaguely, about any of this, because he loves you. Simple. Devastating. And because those babies need someone who remembers that there's a world outside of violence and territory disputes, someone who can teach them that power doesn't have to mean cruelty. Sophia's smile was sad. Dante never had that. His father raised him to be a weapon. I'd like to think these two could have something different. Lucia woke with a cry, and I shifted Marco to one arm while reaching for his sister with the other. The weight of them, the warmth. It felt like an answer I didn't know how to articulate. I need to see him, I said finally. Before I decide anything, I need to talk to Dante. He'll try to convince you to leave. I know. He'll say it's for your own good, that he's protecting you. I know that too. Sophia studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Santos will drive you after the twins are fed and settled. I'll stay here with them. The facility is 20 minutes away. We've got doctors on payroll, completely secure. The next few hours passed in a blur of bottles and diapers, of trying to function normally, while my mind raced ahead to the conversation waiting for me. I showered, changed into clothes Sophia had left out. Designer jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater in deep burgundy. Everything in my size, everything anticipated. How long had Dante been planning for this moment? How many contingencies had he built into his careful house of cards? Santos appeared at 6, his scarred face impassive as ever. Ready, miss? I kissed each twin on the forehead, breathing in that perfect baby smell, powder and milk, and something indefinably sweet. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching with an expression I couldn't quite read. Whatever you decide, she said quietly. The choice is yours. Don't let him bully you into anything. The drive took us deeper into the countryside, away from the main roads onto smaller paths that wound through dense forest. We passed 2 security checkpoints. Men with earpieces and barely concealed weapons, who nodded at Santos before waving us through. Finally, we pulled up to what looked like a private estate. All stone and ivy, windows glowing warm against the gathering dusk. "3rd floor," Santos said. "Room 302. I'll wait here." Inside, the building had that antiseptic smell that all medical facilities shared, regardless of how luxurious the trappings. Marble floors, original artwork on the walls, but underneath it all, the scent of bandages and disinfectant and pain. My hands shook as I approached room 302. The door stood slightly ajar, and through the gap, I could hear voices. One was Dante's, rougher than I remembered, edged with pain he was trying to hide. The other was unfamiliar, male, younger. "Don't care what the doctors say. I need to be operational by—" Dante cut off as I pushed the door open. He was sitting up in bed despite the IV line trailing from his arm, his torso wrapped in bandages that showed bright against his olive skin. He'd lost weight in just 24 hours. Or maybe it was the pallor that made him look gaunt, sharpened all his features into something fierce and hungry. But his eyes, those steel-gray eyes that had haunted my dreams, they hadn't changed at all. They locked onto me with an intensity that stole my breath. Elena. My name was prayer and curse, relief and agony all tangled together. The other man, barely more than a boy really, maybe 25 with nervous energy radiating off him, practically jumped to attention. "I'll give you privacy, boss." He fled, leaving us alone in the sterile room with its beeping monitors and the weight of 6 months' worth of unspoken words pressing down like a physical force. "You came," Dante said, and his voice cracked on the words. "I thought, after everything, I thought maybe you'd take the out Sophia offered. She told you about that?" I ordered her to offer it. He tried to shift, winced, pressed a hand against his ribs. "You should take it, Kara. You should run as far and fast as you can and never look back. Is that what you want?" "What I want." A bitter laugh that turned into a cough. "What I want is irrelevant. What matters is keeping you safe." I moved closer to the bed, close enough to see the fine tremor in his hands, the way his pupils were slightly dilated. Pain medication, probably. Fighting a losing battle against whatever agony he was suppressing. "You don't get to make that choice for me. Not anymore." "Elena." "No. You had your chance to make decisions for both of us. You pushed me away, cut me out, treated me like I was something disposable." My voice was steady, despite the tears burning my eyes. "Now it's my turn. So I'm going to ask you something, and I need the truth. Not the version you think will protect me. The actual truth." He stared at me, war playing out across his features. Finally, he nodded. "Do you love me?" The question hung between us, sharp as broken glass. "Yes." No hesitation. "God help me, yes. I've loved you since that first day in the cafe. I loved you through every moment I had to pretend I didn't. I loved you when I sent you away, when I ignored your calls, when I—" His voice broke. "When I destroyed us to keep you safe. It didn't work." I sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle him. "Alessandro found me anyway. Your plan failed." "I know." The admission seemed to cost him. I underestimated his reach, his obsession with destroying me. And now you and the twins are in more danger than if I'd just— He stopped, jaw clenching. "I made the wrong choice. I see that now. So let me make the right one." I reached for his hand, laced my fingers through his. His skin was fever warm, rough with calluses I'd forgotten about. "Tell me everything. The family, the business, Alessandro, all of it. No more protection, no more lies. Just truth. Elena, if you know too much, there's no going back. You become complicit. I became complicit the moment I walked into that penthouse, the moment I ran with your children." I squeezed his hand. "I'm already in this, Dante. The only question is whether I'm stumbling blind or fighting with my eyes open." He searched my face for a long moment, and I watched him make the decision, saw the exact instant he stopped trying to shield me and accepted me as an ally instead of a liability. "My family has controlled New York's underworld for 4 generations, he began, his voice low and measured. "Construction, shipping, entertainment. We have legitimate businesses fronting for money laundering operations. We also control most of the drug trade coming through the ports, though I've been trying to shift away from that. Too much heat, too much violence. I listened, absorbing information that should have horrified me, but somehow just felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Alessandro Marino runs a rival family. Smaller, more vicious, less concerned with discretion. He's been trying to take our territory for years, but the old rules kept him in check. You don't attack a made man without justification. You don't target families. Dante's expression darkened, but 6 months ago, he found out about you, about the pregnancy. How? Someone in my organization talked. I still don't know who. The fury in his voice was cold, controlled. Alessandro saw an opportunity. He started following you, gathering information, waiting for the right moment to strike. I knew if he saw me with you, if he understood how much you meant to me. He trailed off. So you pushed me away. I tried to make it look like you were nothing. A brief affair, meaningless. I thought if I was cold enough, cruel enough, he'd lose interest. His thumb traced circles on my palm. But then the twins were born, and they're Rossi's, Elena. They carry my blood. That alone makes them valuable to him. As hostages, as leverage, as future soldiers if he could turn them against me. The casual way he discussed his children being used as weapons made my stomach churn. And last night, he got bold. Thought he could end this war in one move. Kill me, take the twins, force what's left of my family to surrender. Dante's smile was sharp and terrible. He miscalculated. You almost died, but I didn't. And now he's shown his hand, broken the old rules, which means I'm no longer bound by them either. The promise in his voice was darker than any threat. He wanted a war. Now he'll get one. And me? The twins? We're just, collateral damage? No. The word was absolute. You're the reason I'll win. Alessandro thinks you're my weakness, but he's wrong. You're my strength. Dante lifted my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles that felt like a vow. If you stay, if you choose this, I will burn his empire to ashes. I will hunt every man who threatened you. I will build you a world where our children can grow up safe, even if I have to destroy everything else to do it. There it was again. That promise of apocalyptic devotion. The kind of love that built kingdoms and raised cities, that made men into myths and women into legends. I should have been terrified, should have run screaming from this room, from this man, from this life that promised nothing but violence wrapped in silk sheets. Instead, I leaned forward and kissed him. His response was immediate and desperate, his free hand tangling in my hair, pulling me closer despite the pain it must have caused him. He tasted like copper and antiseptic, and underneath it all, like home. Like every morning I'd woken in his arms, every midnight conversation. Every moment I'd convinced myself I'd imagined the connection between us. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. I'm staying, I whispered. But not because you're promising me protection or revenge or whatever romantic gesture you think will keep me here. Then why? Because those babies deserve a mother who'll fight for them. Because you deserve someone who won't abandon you when things get ugly. And because... I pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Because I'm not the same woman you pushed away 6 months ago. That woman was naive enough to believe you when you said you didn't love her. This woman knows better. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Surprise, wonder, and something that looked almost like fear. Elena, I can't guarantee your safety. I can't promise you'll survive this. I know, but at least I'll survive it on my own terms. I stood, squeezing his hand one last time. Now rest. Heal. Because when you get out of here, you're going to teach me everything I need to know to protect our family. Our family. He tested the words, and a small, genuine smile touched his lips. I liked the sound of that. So do I. I made it to the door before he called my name. Elena, thank you. For running, for saving them, for... His voice roughened. For still being here. Thank me by winning this war, I said without turning around. And by making sure Marco and Lucia grow up knowing their father. The drive back to the safe house felt different than the journey there. The darkness outside the windows was still the same, the armed checkpoints just as ominous. But inside me, something had crystallized into sharp, clear purpose. I'd made my choice. Now I had to live with the consequences. Sophia was waiting in the foyer when I arrived, her knowing eyes reading my decision before I spoke a word. "I'm staying," I told her. "Whatever it takes, whatever I need to learn, I'm all in." She nodded slowly, something like approval flickering across her face. "Then your education starts tomorrow. For tonight, rest." The twins have been fed and are sleeping peacefully. I climbed the stairs to the nursery, watched Marco and Lucia sleep in their matching cribs, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronization. They looked so innocent, so untouched by the violence swirling around them. I would keep them that way. Whatever it cost me, however much I had to change, I would build them a world where they could be children before they had to be soldiers. Even if it meant becoming something harder, something colder, something more dangerous than the woman I'd been. Dante had warned me there was no going back. He was right. But I was done running anyway. The next 3 weeks transformed me in ways I couldn't have imagined. Sophia became my teacher, drilling information into me with the patience of a saint and the discipline of a drill sergeant. I learned the structure of the Rossi family, the capos who controlled different territories, the soldiers who did the grunt work, the associates who operated on the fringes. I memorized faces from photographs, studied hierarchies until I could recite them in my sleep. The names became people, the people became chess pieces. And I began to understand the game Dante had been playing for years. I learned to shoot. That first morning, Santos drove me to a private range buried deep in the property, handed me a Glock 19 with the casual ease of someone passing along a stapler, and said, "You'll start with this. Light recoil, easy to conceal, reliable." The weight of it in my hands felt obscene. I'd never touched a gun before that moment, had always found them terrifying in their cold efficiency. But Sophia stood beside me, adjusting my stance, correcting my grip, and when I finally squeezed the trigger and the gun kicked back against my palms, something shifted inside me. This was power. This was survival. This was the difference between being a victim and being a threat. By the end of the first week, I could hit a target at 25 yards. By the second, I could field strip the weapon blindfolded. By the third, I'd graduated to other firearms, a smaller Sig Sauer that fit in an ankle holster, a shotgun that made my shoulders ache but could stop a man in his tracks. "You're a natural," Santos said after I'd put 6 rounds in a tight cluster at the center of a paper silhouette. His scarred face showed approval for the first time. "Better than half the soldiers we train." I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt hollow, watching the woman I'd been, the graphic designer who'd worried about font choices and color palettes, disappear behind the woman I was becoming. But the twins kept me grounded. Every morning, I woke to their cries, fed them, changed them, sang them the same Italian lullaby Dante had sung that terrible night. Marco was already showing signs of his father's temperament, serious, watchful, studying my face with those gray eyes like he was cataloging every detail. Lucia was softer, quicker to smile, but I caught glimpses of steel beneath the sweetness. These children would be formidable one day. I just wanted them to be children first. Dante called every night at 8 p.m. exactly. Sometimes the conversations lasted minutes, sometimes hours. He was healing faster than the doctors predicted. Pure stubbornness, Sophia said, already conducting business from his hospital bed. His voice grew stronger each time we spoke, the rasp of pain fading into something harder and more dangerous. "Alessandro's getting desperate," he told me on day 16. "He's lost 2 shipments to the FBI in the last week. Someone's feeding them information." Someone from his organization, someone from mine. The admission was bitter. "He's got a plant somewhere in my family, Elena. Someone high enough to know about operations, to sabotage them. I need to find them before they do more damage." I curled into the leather armchair in the study, the twins asleep upstairs, and listened to him strategize. He talked to me differently now, not like someone to be protected, but like a partner, an equal. He asked my opinion on things, valued my outside perspective. What if you're looking at it wrong? I said during one of these conversations. What if it's not someone close to you, but someone close to Alessandro? A double agent? Silence on the other end. Then, explain. You said Alessandro's operations are sloppier, more violent. What if someone inside his organization is sick of it? What if they're feeding information to both sides, giving the FBI just enough to hurt him, while also funneling intel to whoever your plant is? That would require incredible discipline and a death wish. But I could hear the wheels turning in his mind. Though it would explain some inconsistencies. The timing of certain leaks, the selective nature of what's being exposed. Just a thought. It's a good thought. His voice softened. You're good at this, Kara. Strategy. Analysis. You see patterns I miss. The compliment warmed something in my chest that I'd thought had gone cold. I had a good teacher. Sophia's been drilling organizational theory into me for 2 weeks straight. Sophia likes you. That's rare. A pause. She thinks you'll be good for the family, good for me. And what do you think? I think I don't deserve you, but I'm selfish enough to keep you anyway. On day 20, Dante came home. I was in the nursery when I heard the cars, multiple engines, the crunch of gravel, car doors slamming in quick succession. My hand went instinctively to the Sig Sauer holstered at my ankle before Sophia's voice carried up the stairs. He's here. I lifted Lucia from her crib, settled Marco on my other hip. I'd gotten stronger, could carry both now without my arms screaming, and descended the stairs with my heart trying to climb out of my throat. Dante stood in the foyer surrounded by men in dark suits. He looked thinner than I remembered, moving with a careful stiffness that suggested pain he refused to acknowledge. But he was alive, whole. And when his eyes found mine on the landing, everything else faded to background noise. Elena. And just my name, but it carried the weight of everything. Relief, longing, possession, promise. The twins recognized him immediately. Marco made an excited gurgling sound, tiny hands reaching out, and Lucia's face split into a gummy smile. I descended the rest of the stairs, and Dante met me halfway. His hands gentle but urgent as he took Marco from me. Hey, little man, he murmured, pressing his face to Marco's dark hair. I missed you. Missed you so much. His men discreetly filed out, giving us privacy. Even Sophia disappeared, leaving the four of us alone in the grand foyer with its chandelier throwing prisms across the walls. Give me Lucia too, Dante said, his voice rough. I hesitated. You shouldn't be carrying both of them. Your injuries. I need to hold my children, Elena. Please. I passed Lucia over, watched him settle both twins against his chest, despite the way his jaw tightened with pain. He closed his eyes, breathing them in, and I saw his hands shake slightly. This man who'd killed people, who commanded an empire built on violence, he was trembling because he was holding his babies. I thought I'd lost them, he whispered. When those men broke in, when I couldn't stop them all, I thought this was it. I thought they'd take my children and I'd never see them again. I moved closer, pressed my hand against his back, felt the tension thrumming through him. But you did stop them. You saved them. We saved them. He opened his eyes, found mine. If you hadn't come when you did, but I did. And we're all here now, all safe. For how long? The question was raw. Alessandro won't stop, Elena. This was just his opening move. He'll come at us harder, smarter. And next time, I'll be ready. I said it with more confidence than I felt. Sophia's been training me. I know how to shoot now, how to identify threats. I've memorized every escape route from this house, every safe location within a 50-mile radius. I know which of your men can be trusted and which ones we're still vetting. Dante stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. Sophia's been... what? Training me. What did you think I'd been doing for 3 weeks? Playing house? I pulled back slightly. You said if I stayed, I needed to be all in. So that's what I'm doing. Learning, adapting, becoming someone who can survive in your world. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, pride, and underneath it all, a darker emotion I couldn't quite name. Elena, I never wanted you to have to. I know what you wanted, but what you want doesn't matter anymore. I kept my voice gentle but firm. What matters is reality, and reality is that I'm the mother of your children, whether by blood or choice. That makes me part of this family, which means I need to be able to protect them when you can't. When I can't. He tested the words. You mean when I'm dead? Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Don't talk like that. It's a possibility. You need to be prepared for... No. I cupped his face with both hands, forced him to look at me. You don't get to die, Dante Rossi. You don't get to play martyr and leave me here to raise your children alone. You're going to live through this. You're going to win this war. And then you're going to teach Marco to ride a bike and walk Lucia down the aisle someday, and you're going to be there for every moment in between. Do you understand me? His eyes searched mine, and slowly, incredibly, he smiled. Yes, ma'am. Good. I released him, stepped back. Now give me one of those babies before you tear your stitches open. He passed Lucia over reluctantly, kept Marco cradled against his shoulder. I've missed this, missed you, all of you. We've been right here, waiting. I know, and that's... He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. Elena, there's something I need to tell you, something that changes everything. My stomach dropped. What? I found Alessandro's plant, the person feeding him information. Dante's expression hardened. It was Marco's nanny, the woman I'd hired before you came back into our lives. She'd been working for Alessandro for months, reporting on my schedule, my security, everything. Ice flooded my veins. The woman who had access to your children. Yes, she's been... dealt with. But Elena, she wasn't just gathering information. She was the one who told Alessandro when my security would be lightest. She arranged for the attack. His jaw clenched. She was supposed to take the twins once I was dead, hand them over to Alessandro personally. I tightened my grip on Lucia instinctively. Where is she now? You don't want to know. Yes, I do. Dante studied me for a long moment, and I watched him decide how much truth I could handle. Finally, she's alive. Barely. Being held in a location where Alessandro can't reach her. I've been questioning her, learning everything she knows about his operations, his weaknesses. His voice dropped. And when I'm done, when I've extracted every useful piece of information, she'll disappear. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual way he discussed torture and murder. But all I felt was a cold, fierce satisfaction. This woman had put my children, because yes, they were mine now, in every way that mattered, in danger, had plotted to steal them, to use them as pawns in a war they didn't start. Good, I said quietly. Dante's eyes widened fractionally. Elena, she chose her side. She made her play, and she lost. I met his gaze steadily. I'm not the woman I was, Dante. That woman would have been shocked, would have protested, would have clung to some idealistic notion of justice and mercy, but that woman's children weren't being threatened. These aren't your children, not by blood. Blood doesn't make a family, love does. Choice does. I shifted Lucia higher on my hip. I choose them. I choose you, which means I choose this life, with all its darkness and violence. So when you say you're going to make that woman disappear, all I feel is grateful that she won't get another chance to hurt my family. The silence stretched between us, heavy with implications. Then Dante closed the distance between us, careful not to crush the babies, and kissed me with a desperation that bordered on reverence. I love you. He breathed against my lips. God, Elena, I love you so much it terrifies me. Good, because I love you too, and that's even more terrifying. We stood there in the foyer, the four of us, a family forged in violence and blood, but held together by something stronger, something that felt almost like hope. Sophia appeared in the doorway, her expression carefully neutral. Boss, your capos are waiting in the study. They need to brief you on the situation with the docs. Dante sighed, pressed one more kiss to Marco's forehead before reluctantly passing him to me. Duty calls. But tonight, his eyes found mine. Tonight, we talk about the future, about what comes next. Alessandro? Among other things. His smile was sharp. But yes, it's time to end this, once and for all. He disappeared into the study, trailed by Sophia, and I was left alone with the twins in the suddenly too quiet foyer. Through the closed door, I could hear the murmur of voices. Male, urgent, discussing things I only partially understood. Territory, and shipments, and retribution. I carried the twins upstairs, settled them in their cribs for an afternoon nap. They went down easily, exhausted from the excitement of seeing their father. I stood watching them sleep, these perfect, innocent creatures, who had no idea the storm gathering around them, but I knew. And I was ready. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Meet me in the training room. Now. I found her in the basement range, a sleek black case open on the table beside her. Inside, nestled in foam, was a compact pistol I'd never seen before. "What's this?" I asked. "Your weapon. Custom made, fits your hand perfectly, virtually untraceable." Sophia lifted it carefully, checking the weight. "Dante ordered it for you 3 weeks ago. He wanted you armed with the best." She handed it to me, and I was struck by how right it felt. Balanced. Deadly. Mine. "There's something else," Sophia said quietly. "Alessandro
One of his
knows
scouts
you're here.
spotted Santos bringing you to see Dante at the facility, which means I'm a confirmed target. Yes, which means you need to be prepared for the possibility that he'll try to take you, use you against Dante." Her eyes were hard. "If that happens, you fight. You fight dirty, you fight ruthless, and you don't stop until either you're free or they're dead. Understood?" I checked the chamber, tested the sight, felt the cool weight of power in my hands. "Understood." "Good." Sophia's expression softened fractionally. "For what it's worth, Elena, I think you're exactly what this family needs. Someone who remembers there's more to life than territory and blood feuds. Someone who can keep Dante human. Is that even possible? I don't know. But you're the only person I've ever seen try." That night, after the twins were asleep and the house had settled into watchful quiet, Dante came to my room. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, just looking at me, reading in bed, wearing one of his old shirts that I'd stolen from his closet weeks ago. The domesticity of the scene seemed to pain him. "Come here," I said softly. He moved to the bed, sat on the edge, and I saw the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. This man carried an empire on his shoulders, made decisions that affected hundreds of lives, lived with the constant weight of violence and betrayal. "Lie down," I instructed, and when he complied, I curled against his side, careful of his healing wounds. "Tell me the plan." "The plan?" "For Alessandro. You said it's time to end this, so tell me how." Dante was quiet for so long, I thought he'd fallen asleep. "Then, there's going to be a meeting, neutral ground. The old families, the commission, they're convening to discuss the situation. Alessandro broke too many rules with the attack on my home, on my children. The other bosses want answers, want assurances that this won't spill over into their territories. And I'm going to offer him a deal, a way out that doesn't end in all-out war." His voice was carefully controlled. "He can keep his operations, his territory, everything he has now, but he stays away from my family. He never mentions your name, never looks at the twins, never even thinks about them. That's the price for peace. You think he'll take it?" "No." Dante's arm tightened around me. "I think his pride won't let him back down. Which means when the meeting ends and negotiations fail, I'll have the blessing of the commission to do what needs to be done. Kill him. Remove him from power, dismantle his organization, absorb his territory." He paused. "Yes. Kill him." I should have protested, should have suggested alternatives, peace talks, anything other than more violence, but I thought of Marco and Lucia sleeping down the hall, of the life they deserved, of the woman who'd been willing to betray them for money. "When?" I asked simply. 3 days. The meeting's in 3 days. He shifted to look at me. "I need you to stay here. Stay safe. Sophia will protect you and the twins while I'm gone." "No. Elena, No, I repeated firmly. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. It's too dangerous. If something goes wrong, then you'll need someone watching your back. I rose up on one elbow, met his eyes. I'm not going in with you. I understand that. But I can be nearby, ready to move if needed. Sophia's been training me for exactly this. You've had 3 weeks of training, Kara. These are men who've been in this life since birth. And they'll underestimate me, think I'm just your pretty accessory, something to be dismissed. I smiled without humor. That's an advantage, Dante. Use it. He stared at me, war playing across his features, the need to protect me warring with the knowledge that I was right. Finally, he pulled me down for a kiss that tasted like surrender and promise. 3 days, he murmured against my lips, and then this ends. One way or another, I agreed. I didn't sleep that night, just lay in Dante's arms listening to his heartbeat, feeling the rise and fall of his chest, memorizing the weight of him beside me. In 3 days, everything would change. Either we'd win and build the safe future we'd been fighting for, or we'd lose and none of this would matter anyway. But I was done being afraid. I was done running. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The meeting was set for midnight in a restaurant Alessandro's family had owned for 3 generations. Neutral ground, theoretically, though the irony of meeting on Marino territory wasn't lost on anyone. I spent those 3 days in a state of controlled tension, practicing at the range until my hands stopped shaking, memorizing floor plans Sophia provided, running through scenarios until I could recite them in my sleep. Dante watched me transform with something like pride and grief warring in his eyes, but he didn't try to stop me again. Stay in the car, he said the night before, his hands framing my face. Santos will be with you, 3 blocks away. If things go south, you run. You take the twins, and you disappear into the network Sophia's built. Promise me. I promise to keep them safe, I said carefully. That's all I can promise. He understood what I wasn't saying, that if it came down to saving him or running, I'd make my own choice in the moment. His jaw tightened, but he nodded. The night of the meeting, I dressed in black jeans and a dark sweater, the custom pistol Sophia had given me holstered at my ankle, a knife strapped to my thigh. I looked like someone playing dress-up for a heist movie, but Sophia's approving nod told me I'd gotten it right. Remember, she said, helping me into a Kevlar vest that fit under my sweater. You're not a soldier. You're not expected to fight. Your job is to observe, to be smart, and if absolutely necessary, to create a distraction. And if Dante needs me, then you do what you have to do. Her eyes were hard. But you come back to those babies, Elena, no matter what. They need their mother. I kissed Marco and Lucia goodbye, sleeping peacefully, unaware that their entire future hung in the balance of tonight's meeting. Sophia would stay with them, along with 6 armed guards. This house had become a fortress. Nothing would get through. The drive into the city felt surreal. Santos at the wheel, Dante beside him in the front seat, me in the back with 2 of Dante's most trusted men, brothers named Carlo and Enzo who'd been with the family since his father's time. They spoke in low Italian, checking weapons with casual efficiency, and I felt like an imposter in their world of controlled violence. You good, miss? Carlo asked, catching my eye in the rearview mirror. I'm good. First time's always the hardest, gets easier. I wasn't sure if that was comforting or terrifying. We parked 3 blocks from the restaurant as planned. Through the windshield, I could see the building. Old brick, unassuming, windows glowing warm against the February cold. Other cars lined the street, expensive sedans with tinted windows. The commission had arrived. Dante turned in his seat to look at me. In the dim light, his face was all sharp angles and shadows, the face of the mafia boss rather than the man who sang lullabies to his children. Stay here. No matter what you hear, what you see, you stay in this car until Santos says otherwise. I understand. He studied me a moment longer, then leaned back, cupped my face, and kissed me like it might be the last time. When he pulled away, his eyes were molten silver. I love you. Remember that, whatever happens. Nothing's going to happen. You're going to walk in there, get the commission's approval, and walk back out. I tried to sound confident. This is just a formality. Right, a formality, but we both knew better.
Dante exited the car with Carlo and Enzo flanking him, their movements synchronized, practiced. I watched them walk toward the restaurant, 3 men in dark suits who looked like exactly what they were, predators heading into a den of other predators. The door closed behind them, and the street fell silent. "Now we wait," Santos said quietly. Minutes crawled by like hours. I checked my phone obsessively, 11:47, 11:51, 11:58. Midnight came and went. The restaurant's windows revealed nothing, curtains drawn, only the faintest glow of light seeping through. At 12:17, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "He's walking into a trap. Alessandro brought guns. Get out now." My blood turned to ice. Santos. I see it. His eyes were fixed on the restaurant entrance, where 3 men had appeared, Alessandro's men. Distinctive in their cheaper suits and visible shoulder holsters, they weren't going in. They were taking up positions outside, guarding the exits. "We have to warn him," I said, already reaching for my door handle. Santos's hand shot out, gripped my wrist. "Miss, you can't. The moment you step out there, you become a target. Dante's about to be executed at a peace meeting." My voice rose. "You think I'm going to sit here while—" Gunfire erupted inside the restaurant. The sound was muffled but unmistakable, sharp cracks followed by the crash of shattering glass. Santos was already moving, engine roaring to life, but I was faster. I threw open my door and ran. "Miss, Elena, stop!" But I was already across the street, the pistol in my hand before I consciously decided to draw it, my body moving on instinct, and 3 weeks of intensive training. The men guarding the entrance spun toward me, surprise flickering across their faces before they raised their weapons. I fired first. The recoil jolted through my arms, the sound deafening in the quiet street. 1 man went down. I'd aimed for center mass like Sophia taught me, and the Kevlar probably saved him, but he stayed down. The other 2 dove for cover, giving me the precious seconds I needed to reach the door. Inside was chaos. The restaurant had been set up for the meeting. Long table in the center, chairs overturned now. The commission members scattered behind whatever cover they could find. Dante was behind the bar with Carlo, both firing at Alessandro's men, who'd apparently been hidden in the kitchen. Bodies already littered the floor, 2 of Alessandro's soldiers, and God, one of the commission bosses, an elderly man I'd memorized from Sophia's briefings. Enzo was down too, clutching his shoulder, blood spreading across his white shirt. "Elena!" Dante's roar carried over the gunfire. "What the hell are you—" I didn't answer, couldn't answer, because Alessandro himself was emerging from behind the overturned table, a gun in one hand and a smile on his face that promised death. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, handsome in a cruel way, with dark eyes that found me immediately. "The girlfriend," he said, his voice carrying despite the chaos. "How convenient. I was wondering when you'd show up." He raised his gun. Time slowed to syrup. I saw Dante moving, saw him vault over the bar with impossible speed despite his still healing injuries, saw the desperation in his eyes as he realized he wouldn't reach me in time, saw Alessandro's finger tightening on the trigger, and I dropped to one knee and fired. 3 shots, just like Sophia had drilled into me, center mass. The first went wide, panic and adrenaline throwing off my aim. The second caught Alessandro in the shoulder, spinning him. The third hit his chest, and he went down hard, the gun clattering from his hand. The restaurant went silent, except for the ringing in my ears. Dante reached me, pulled me behind an overturned table, his hands running over me frantically. "Are you hurt? Did he hit you? Elena, talk to me. I'm fine. I'm fine." But I was shaking, the gun still clutched in my white-knuckled grip. You did good, Kara. You did so good." He pressed his forehead to mine, and I felt him trembling too. "But you were supposed to stay in the car. You were supposed to be safe. Someone texted me, said it was a trap. I couldn't—" I pulled back to look at him. "I couldn't let you die, boss." Carlo's voice cut through. "Alessandro's still alive, barely." We moved together toward where Alessandro lay gasping, blood spreading beneath him in a dark pool. His eyes found mine, filled with hatred, and something that might have been respect. "The girlfriend has teeth," he rasped.
Didn't see that coming. Dante knelt beside him, all business now. Who gave the order? Who in the commission sanctioned this? Alessandro laughed, blood bubbling at his lips. No one. Did this. Myself. Couldn't let you have everything. Your empire, your family, your perfect life. He coughed, wincing. Should have just taken the deal. Yes, Dante said quietly. You should have. The commission members emerged from cover, 3 of them remaining. Old men with faces like granite, assessing the carnage with clinical detachment. The eldest, a man Sophia had identified as Don Castellano, spoke first. This was poorly done, Alessandro. Violating sacred ground. Bringing violence to a peace meeting. His voice was heavy with disappointment. You've dishonored yourself and your family. My family's dead anyway, Alessandro whispered. You think Rossi will let them survive? He'll take everything. All eyes turned to Dante. I watched him consider, watched the calculations running behind his steel-gray eyes. This was the moment. He could wipe out the Merinos completely, absorb their territory, eliminate every potential threat. His hand found mine, squeezed once. Your family can keep their operations, Dante said finally. Under new leadership, someone who understands the value of peace. Your cousin Marco? He's reasonable, isn't he? Don Castellano nodded slowly. Marco Marino is a good man. He never approved of Alessandro's methods. Then he takes over. The Marino family continues, but they stay in their territory. No expansion, no encroachment. And they never, Dante's voice turned to granite, never come near my family again. That's the deal. And if they violate it, another commission member asked, then I finish what I started tonight. But I'd rather not. Dante stood, keeping me close to his side. I'm tired of war, gentlemen. I have children now. A woman I love. I want them to grow up in a world that's a little less bloody than the one we inherited. Don't you? The commission members exchanged glances. Finally, Don Castellano spoke. The commission recognizes the transfer of power within the Marino family. Marco Marino will be contacted and informed of the new arrangement. As for tonight's unfortunate events, his eyes swept the restaurant. This will be recorded as an internal Marino dispute. Self-defense. The authorities need not be involved. Just like that, it was over. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police despite the commission's influence. Santos appeared in the doorway, gesturing urgently. Time to leave. We fled into the night, me pressed against Dante's side in the back of the car, both of us blood-splattered and shaking. Carlo drove with Enzo in the passenger seat, applying pressure to his shoulder wound. Behind us, the commission's cleaners were already descending on the restaurant, erasing evidence, crafting the official story. You shot Alessandro Marino, Dante said quietly as we sped through empty streets. Do you understand what that means? That I saved your life? That too. But Elena, you're in the life now. Really in it. The other families will know you pulled the trigger. You'll have a reputation. He turned to look at me. There's no going back from this. I know. And I did. I'd crossed a line tonight, had taken a life, or nearly taken one, and I couldn't unknow what that felt like. The weight of the gun, the recoil, the way Alessandro had crumpled. But I'd do it again. I'd do it 1,000 times if it meant you came home. Something broke in Dante's expression. He pulled me against him, buried his face in my hair, and I felt wetness against my temple that might have been tears. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. We reached the safe house as dawn was breaking, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold that seemed too beautiful for the night we'd survived. Sophia met us at the door, her face carefully neutral until she saw we were alive, mostly whole. Then her composure cracked just slightly. The twins? I asked immediately. Sleeping peacefully. They never woke. She studied us both, taking in the blood and the exhaustion, and whatever else showed on our faces. It's done then? It's done, Dante confirmed. Alessandro's men are standing down. Marco Marino is taking over. The commission has approved new territorial boundaries. He paused. And Elena shot Alessandro. Sophia's eyebrows rose fractionally. Did you kill him? I don't know, I admitted. He was alive when we left, but either way, you saved Dante's life. Saved the family. Sophia's expression softened. Well done, dear. Your first combat engagement, and you kept your head. I'm proud. I should have felt something. Horror at what I'd done. Guilt. Remorse. But standing there in the foyer as sunrise painted the walls gold, all I felt was relief. We'd survived. Dante was alive. The twins were safe upstairs. Everything else was just details. I need to see them, I said. The babies. I need... Go, Dante said gently. I'll clean up here. I climbed the stairs on shaking legs, pushed open the nursery door. Marco and Lucia slept exactly as I'd left them, tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronization, completely untouched by the violence that had swirled around their family tonight. I sank into the rocking chair, watching them sleep as the sun rose higher, and finally let myself cry, not from fear or trauma, but from the sheer overwhelming relief of survival, of still being here to watch them grow. Dante found me there an hour later, showered and changed, the blood washed away but exhaustion still lining his face. He knelt beside the chair, his hand covering mine on the armrest. Marry me, he said quietly. I blinked. What? Marry me. Make this official. Make us a real family. His steel gray eyes held mine. I know it's fast. I know we've been through hell, but, Elena, I almost lost you tonight. I almost lost everything, and life's too short to wait for the perfect moment. This is the moment. Right here. Right now. With our children sleeping, and the sun coming up, and both of us still breathing. Marry me. I should have said it was too soon, should have pointed out that we'd technically only been together for a few months before he'd pushed me away, that this was all trauma bonding and adrenaline. Should have been practical and sensible and cautious. Instead, I said, yes. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face into something young and hopeful. Yes? Yes. I'll marry you, Dante Rossi. I'll be your wife and these babies' mother and whatever else this insane life requires. I leaned down to kiss him, but I have conditions. Name them. No more pushing me away to protect me. We're partners now. Equals. You don't make decisions about my safety without consulting me. Agreed. And we raise these children to have a choice. We don't force them into this life. If they want out, if they want to be doctors or teachers or anything else, we support them. Dante's expression flickered with something complicated, but he nodded. Agreed. Though they'll need to understand their heritage, their family. Understand, yes, but not be imprisoned by it. I held his gaze. I mean it, Dante. I won't raise soldiers if they'd rather be scholars. Then we'll raise whoever they want to be. He stood, pulled me up, wrapped his arms around me. And we'll do it together. Marco chose that moment to wake, his imperious cry demanding attention. Dante moved to the crib, lifted his son with a gentleness that still took my breath away, and began the familiar swaying motion that soothed the baby. Hey, little man, he murmured. Guess what? Your mama and I are getting married. What do you think about that? Marco yawned and grabbed a fistful of Dante's shirt, which seemed like approval enough. Lucia woke next, and I lifted her, settled her against my shoulder, and the four of us stood there in the morning light. A family forged in violence, but held together by something stronger, something that felt like it might actually last. What happens now? I asked. After everything, what comes next? Dante considered. Now. We live. We raise our children. We rebuild the family into something better than what I inherited. We find ways to make legitimate money, slowly transition out of the darker operations. He paused. We try to be happy, Elena. Despite everything, in spite of everything. We try. Just try? Trying's all any of us can do. His smile was crooked. But if anyone can pull off impossible odds, it's you.
You shot Alessandro Marino on your first real engagement. I'd say that qualifies you for just about anything. Fair point. The weeks that followed settled into something almost normal. We moved back to the city, to a new penthouse with better security and no memories of blood. Dante officially announced our engagement to the family, and the response was mixed. Some of the old guard disapproved of bringing an outsider so deep into the organization. Others saw me as exactly what Dante needed, someone to humanize him, to remind him there was more to life than territory and power. I didn't care what they thought. I had Sophia's approval, and that was enough. Marco Marino sent a formal message of congratulations and a promise to honor the new territorial agreements. Alessandro had survived, barely, but he'd been stripped of power, sent into exile somewhere overseas. The Marino family was rebuilding under more reasonable leadership, and the streets of New York were quieter than they'd been in years. We were married on a cool April morning in a private ceremony at the estate, just family and the closest members of the organization. I wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers from the property. Marco and Lucia were too young to understand, but attended anyway, dressed in matching outfits that made Dante's eyes suspiciously bright. When he slid the ring onto my finger, a single diamond so large it should have been ostentatious but somehow wasn't, I thought about the woman I'd been 8 months ago. The graphic designer who'd spilled coffee on a handsome stranger and had no idea she was flirting with the head of a crime family, who'd thought love was simple and dangerous men only existed in movies. That woman was gone. I'd become someone harder, someone capable of violence when necessary, someone who could stand beside a mafia boss and call herself his equal, but I'd also become someone softer, someone who knew the weight of holding 2 infants while their father bled out. Someone who understood that family wasn't about blood. It was about choice and sacrifice, and showing up even when showing up meant walking into gunfire. I love you, Dante murmured, as we danced our first dance to music playing from a hidden sound system, our children being passed around by doting relatives. I love you, Elena Rossi, my wife, my partner, my everything. I love you too, I said against his chest. My husband, my impossible, complicated, wonderful husband. The twins grew. Marco inherited his father's intensity, his sharp mind, his protective instincts. By 2 years old, he was already positioning himself between his sister and anything he perceived as threatening. Lucia developed her mother's, my creativity, and her father's charm. She could talk her way out of any trouble, even at 18 months. We raised them with love and structure, and the knowledge that they had options. Dante kept his promise. The darker operations of the Rossi family slowly transitioned to legitimate businesses, or were quietly shut down. It took years, and we'd probably never be entirely clean. But we were trying, always trying. Some nights I'd wake from dreams of that restaurant, of gunfire and blood and Alessandro's cruel smile. Dante would hold me through it, understanding without words what the violence had cost. He had his own nightmares, of coming home to find me and the children gone, of failing to protect what mattered most. But we survived them together, and slowly, impossibly, we built something that looked almost like peace. 5 years after that terrible night when I'd run through a penthouse with 2 screaming infants, I stood in our kitchen watching Dante teach Marco how to make pancakes, while Lucia demanded he make hers, in the shape of a butterfly, Papa, please. The morning light streamed through windows that overlooked the city, and everything was warm and golden and perfect. He caught my eye over the children's heads and smiled. That real smile, the one reserved for moments when the mask could come off completely. What are you thinking about? He asked. That I'd do it all again, I said honestly. Every terrifying moment, every impossible choice, I'd do it all again for this, for burnt pancakes and demanding 5-year-olds, for family. I moved to his side, wrapped my arm around his waist, for the life we built from ashes and blood and stubborn refusal to give up. Marco presented his attempt at a pancake, more abstract art than breakfast food, with obvious pride. Lucia clapped her hands and declared it perfect, fratello. And Dante kissed my temple, holding me close while chaos and joy swirled around us. I'd do it all again too, he murmured. Every second, every choice, everything that led me to you. Outside our windows, New York woke slowly to a new day. Somewhere in the city, the remnants of the Rossi organization conducted their business, maintained their territory, lived their complicated lives. But here, in our kitchen with our children and our hard-won peace, we were just a family that had fought like hell to survive, a family that had chosen each other, again and again, despite every obstacle, a family that was against all odds and reason, happy. And that was enough. That was everything.